Welcome back. Today we continue the path to the end. But first, time to make a shield just for the sake of adding to the other shield and just miscellaneous improvements all around. The kite shield will be used later. There's no sunshine when she's gone. Ashley's in the sun this way. There's no sunshine when he's gone. Now it's gone too long, ever since I started this game. I know, let me Ashley alone in the sunshine when she's gone. Jerk. That's her final goal. Villains are genetically drawn to construction sites and churches. Another goofy Japanese hat time. Whereas the Dark Elementals had Takuhatsugasas, these guys have Buddhist hats. The Water Elemental wears a Tengai, or a Fukamigasa. It's some sort of a Buddhist hat to obscure the ego. And that's it. Random hats. Period. If I was smart, I would have gotten the Spark Fusion spell from the room off of the Bandit's Hollow, but I didn't. Ugh, what the hell did I do? Well, that explains why this fight got cut really short, because I did something really wrong. It's not like there was really any particularly interesting things in that fight. The last elemental casts single target water spell and the area of effect water spell. That's all. The abandoned mines was the first instance of this, and this is the second of multiple paths. They both lead to the same place and are considerably shorter than the two different paths to the Bandit's Hollow room. This is the better direction to go, but I will do both. This jerk is a gremlin. I guess he might be the big brother to the imp. These guys, however, are not really afraid to use the weapons they've got, because they actually do have weapons rather than just flying naked creeps. They are also quite resilient, so debuffs are encouraged. The ultimate strategy is you want to dump as much as you can onto them and silence them, because otherwise they'll just undo all the work that you've done. Despite being the imp's big brothers, personally I think they are less annoying than imps themselves. And they have the option of buffing themselves up, so that's not causing status ailments to you. They can attack you, so that's another option of not causing status ailments to you. Oh, they are just kinda magic point sinks. Also, if you want to be a moron, you end up having to whiff a lot because you're let your risk go way too high and are too stubborn to use something to stop that. I could have switched to reflect damage, but, well, personally I prefer to regain hit points rather than to cause a little pinprick against them. I'm just too proud to dispel silence, and it takes me a while to realize that, hey, I could silence him. And it's just kind of an annoyance to go into chain abilities. Remember that you can inflict status ailments, and then remember to remove those chain types immediately after you accomplish your deed, because they don't do damage, they don't regain anything, they just apply the status, and they're really awkward little flourishes that don't lend themselves to chaining. They're even more awkward of a tell than the thrust forward, stay perfectly motionless for a few seconds, and then pull back But here's where I remember that I could do that. And here's where I remember that I want to get that off my list as soon as possible. And as you can see, the loss of the agility down debuff against him really hurts. And I was forced to use a risk reducing. It's just an awful, awful scene. I think even if I actually didn't lose that footage for the boss fight, that was a lot longer than the boss fight was. Getting rid of silence. Remembering that I could actually set up my battle mode and heal more. The bonds of friendship, by the way, are ionic bonds. They're not covalent or anything. They're fairly weak. The limestone quarries loot rooms have a theme of having a elemental guardian. But since I have Trinity Gems, well, a Trinity Gem and at least one of each good tiered elemental gems, these guys are chumps. A whole bunch of stuff. That's a very nice thing. Definitely want to be able to get rid of Curse without using one of my items. Just cleaning up grimoires. Anyway, I'm going the other way now. This time will be much better. First things first, get hurt. Next, well, this guy's a volunteer for getting smacked in the head. previous room I just had a bad setup. And again, forget that I could actually heal more. Not that it mattered, I'm topped off right now. Got ready for a phantom. With Eternity, a good silver weapon, and rune earrings, these guys just don't last long. Time for the second gimmick of this quarry. Each of these forks come with a wraith, like I just showed, and a next room, which is interesting, not challenging, just interesting. It's a locked door fight against 2 ogres. If I were to go through the other path, they would be 2 Dullahans. So honestly, it's whichever you feel more comfortable fighting. They're both pretty chain resistant either way, but you have the tools to ruin both of their days. Probably the Dullahans are marginally easier, since you have, at least I have 3 Demonas, whereas I only have 1 Orion. But on your playthrough, perhaps you're more lucky in one way rather than the other. Neither are really dangerous. That being said, if I were to turn right around after leaving this room, they would respawn as 2 Dullahans. And the other way would be the opposite. Coming from one direction, they would be Dullahans, and then the other way around, they'd be ogres. Everyone wants me to shut up. They don't cast silence on the neighbor's dogs, though. Missed the mark. And missed the landing. Yeah, I'm just not good at that right now. Just need that little bit of extra height, and again, lateral jumping is not this game's strong suit. Little hop that wasn't necessary, but oh well, why not? And if you haven't noticed, I've come to pressing start to center the camera rather than remembering whether or not left and right is reversible camera controls or not, so. Gremlins just have such an odd array of weapons. Nope, you don't get to do a thing. Quite surprised I was able to actually get that in before his action. Since I'm coming from the other way in this room, I'm getting ogres. And a timed battle for some reason. Since this guy wants to come and meet me, I'll meet him. Let his friend run away. I'll get him soon enough. He will be mine in the end. Like now. And really the only thing, since they're so bloody weak, is that since they try and kite you, make you forget that the other one's coming up behind you and gonna land a couple cheap shots while you continue to run after the one that you can't possibly catch. Unless you have a two-handed or a longer ranged weapon. But there's no need in that. Clip through the floor. Don't care about you. Just leads back to that room with a T that goes to the treasure room, and immediately accosted by some Dullahands. And even though I'm just using evil affinity gems, Demonas, it's not as optimal as using whatever elemental actions are weaker, but a lot of doesn't really make that much of a difference. It hurts. And he vibrates to death. Stupid dispelling jerk. He'll pay for that. Kind of interesting now that I think about it. Aside from leather, all the materials actually do suffer some form of oxidation or just corrosion. Bronze, patinas, iron, steel, Damascus rusts, silver tarnishes. It's actually a pretty good name for it. And as you can see, going the direction of the treasure and ignoring the side that I was compelled to go down because of compulsion leads to a much easier jump and a much quicker and more rewarding path. It's only taken about 15 videos from really hating phantoms to just laughing at them. Hell, I never even really hated the wraiths any more than I did the ghosts. The ghosts I hated so bloody much because they didn't have any real option to counteract them. More gremlins. Even though their magic spells really aren't that dangerous to me, they're annoying. Far more annoying for them to heal or buff or debuff me than to do a little pinprick of 2 or 5 or 8 hit points of damage. Well, even 22 doesn't bother me. To the right, we're not getting in there for quite some time. Very long time. A lifetime from now, as it were. For some reason, lost frames there. Don't know why. As I found out, we're in the cathedral now. It's kind of a bit too bad that so late in the game we're getting character development from Sydney's second in command. But it's still quite nice. It should be stepping. The smack never came. Shit. Oh, double shit. There's only one way in and out of the cathedral, and he's standing in the way. Another simple puzzle. Just need to get enough elevation to make it to that platform. Also need to be a little bit further away so that I'm not in the dead angle to the wooden crate above. Once more with feeling. Time for a joke. Doubly so because I have 2 gin ambers and a sylph thing too. And look at that. I don't even care. Probably could have even survived a level 2 spell from him, but we'll give him the pleasure. Kite Shield will see some use. And the Talos Feldspar is, if I haven't mentioned it already, the weaker equivalent to the Titan Malachite. So that probably will not get too much use, aside from me just loading up a weapon for default murder. Again, I mentioned it before, if you go to the Bandit's Hollow and go to the treasure room off to the side, you can have another spell to ruin this guy's day. It really isn't that big of a deal. As you can see, and I have my rapier, I have 1 Ifrit Carnelian and a couple Salamander Rubies. But even with Postasia, I'm doing some pretty decent damage to this guy. Especially if it criticals. This Ogre Lord is, like all the Goblin and Orc chiefs and things like that, and even like ogres themselves, is quite magical. He's also susceptible to silence, which eventually I'm going to get tired of his shit and silence him, and then I'm going to murder him. I am not letting you have regen. Everything cancels that regenerate spell. And his little jump is ridiculous. He didn't even really lift his legs or thrust his legs, he just hovered. And it's over. If you can recall the original ogre fight. Ashley almost had his head taken off. You could see the blade phase through his neck. Whereas the original ogre ran into a wall while Ashley turned his back as a badass and didn't watch the explosion. And this time it nearly cost him his head. It didn't, though. Probably would have only did 20 damage anyway. The Aglis Chain is a demonic boostings accessory. Marginally better than the Rune Earrings. So, I mean, if I'm definitely fighting an evil batch of enemies rather than a mix, That will be my go-to accessory. And why I wasn't too upset with the fact that I lost the boss footage for this jerk. Consider this is basically how that fight should have went, even though the original few minutes of that footage was really, really pathetic. Murder. Backhand. Ha! Parry. Thrust. Spin. And he floats to the top of the aquarium like a fish. The angel face is a very nice thing to have, but you won't see that for a bit. The beaded anklet is the best phantom, soul phantom accessory in the game. So again, if I'm going to be fighting something that is a phantom and no mix of evil, it's the go-to thing. See you next time.